Oh, there we go. Hey, how are you guys?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Let's give it up for 200. She was in Vegas. I actually missed it. I was in Vegas, as you know, as some of you may know, and I was there for 3 days, and there was a lot of studying. That guy was telling you about the 1,000-page manual. That was a 1,000-page manual. That was not a figure of speech. So it was a lot of studying and a lot of, history, a lot of concepts, a lot of conceptual things. But, as I had a few days to think about everything, I wanted to bring it back to just reality here, day-to-day life. Actually, theology tends to get a little heady, right? It gets, well, this and that, this and a lot of diagrams, a lot of you should, a lot of shoulds, and a lot of the way you should be. And then it's hard, and then you just walk out the door and live your life. And you drive the same way that you drive, and you talk to people the same way that you talk to people. And I find that one of our goals here at Family Church, South Florida, is to bring values and God-centered, sort of God's presence into our lives in a real way that can actually affect culture. That's one of the things I would like to see. I think I've told you this before, but a fascinating thing about New York City, where I lived for a while, was 180 different languages and countries spoken, and people from everywhere, yet just about everybody holds the door open for each other. That's like a code in New York. And if you don't do it, you better watch out. You're going to get your head chopped off. So, it's an intense thing. You better hold the door open for you or you're going to mess something up. Culture goes beyond race. People get it mixed up. They think that their culture is their race or that it is the country they come from. Actually, it's not. It's not that. Culture is a broad, sweeping thing that oftentimes envelops people, even in a certain geographic location. So what's so cool about what we're kind of stepping into now in an era that our founders, Reverend Moon, Mrs. Moon, are talking about now. Just a couple weeks ago, True Mother was saying, I want to end indemnity forever. And in other words, I want to end this era of religious suffering, right? Religion has its place, especially when you think of mankind having a distance from God. What's going to get us back? But what we don't talk about so much is what's it going to be like when we're back? What are we going to act like? What are we going to be like when we're actually back? So it's kind of an interesting, almost a catch-22, almost a dilemma that we don't really think about very much. Would you really be doing a lot of the things that our religions do if we were actually there with God, if there wasn't a separation, right? So something cool to study is, or think about, what would we be like if we were just naturally connected to God? What would have happened? Would we need to, what would that model look like? And in our Divine Principle, we teach that model looks like a family. It's a heavenly parent, a heavenly father, and the children. Right? So of course, when children mess up and do something, like for me, I used to sneak cookies and crackers from the cabinet and try to blame it on my sister as slightly as I could. And usually I got away with it. I was pretty smooth. In those cases, when I got caught, I would have to kind of fess up and own up and talk to my dad about it, right? My dad would usually come talk to me about it. I would just hold the facade as long as I could. But that's an interesting way of looking at how we relate to God. I think my hesitation with being from a religious point of view, is thinking of God as a giant entity in the sky, where the more I think about it, the more you realize it's a heart thing. It's a parent. Parents are always kind of watching, even when they're trying to not let you know that they're watching, peeking around the corner. I remember one time my dad left a tape recorder while I was practicing guitar, and he taped, because he tried to get me to play him a song when I was a kid, and I was way too shy. I would never do it. I'd be like, no, I don't know how to do it. And then so he's like, okay, that's okay, just go and practice. Go practice, it's okay. And then he left the little cassette recorder in there. And so that was the only way he could hear what I was doing. So maybe God is like that. Maybe he's just kind of there, It's a gentle presence more than this almighty lightning bolt throwing presence. So what True Mother is saying, I want to end the indemnity era forever. So instead of focusing all our energy on patching up our faults, which of course is needed, we all want to get better, right? We all want to improve. I think the shift is happening to, okay, let's pretend those faults are reconcilable. You can pay them off over time with a low interest rate. So what do you want to do with your life now? How do you want to act? And how do you want to be? So that's why we talk about the culture of heart. We're trying to say, hey, we have something that we can build. A new world can be built. And I have to say, one of the most succinct things that I took away from this week of this kind of retreat and this studying was the kind of revelation that no matter how many people squabble over different ambassador tables and boardrooms and discussion rooms, it doesn't seem like world peace ever happens. It doesn't matter how qualified or how well-dressed or how dignified these folks are at these tables and at these meetings, reconciling the world's problems. The world's problems just don't seem to go away. And so what we're teaching is that we believe that world peace and the real solutions are not going to come from boardrooms. They're going to come from living rooms. They're going to come from families. This is sort of where the centerpiece of our whole teaching is world peace begins with peaceful families. That's our whole thing here. If you can educate and help people be better parents, be better spouse, be better everything, be better siblings, then you can literally create a new world. Because we all know that most things come from our childhood, right? The way we were raised. I know I still do things that are exactly mirror image what my dad does. Sometimes, I don't know if anybody's experienced this, but it's a really scary thing when you start to grow up and you go home and you start to see in your parents stuff that you do. You're like, oh my God, I do that exact thing. You know? And Casey and I have been talking about that. Like, we see what we're... So now I know where I'm headed, right? And the things that I would like to change, I'm thinking about now. I'm working on them. Something to notice. Take a look at your parents. Take a look at the cycles going on. Because most likely, that's kind of where you got your blueprint, your parents. So it's a good thing to know that really we're all just individuals and we're all just units of families. If you really want to change the world, you would change it through each family one at a time. That concept has not been explored enough. That is sort of the the seed idea of what we're teaching. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty ridiculous the way politics and the way world events are going right now. People are squabbling, they're rioting, they are having hissy fits everywhere. It's kind of ridiculous. And when I see people going through these things, you know, griping and griping and griping about the world, I think, wow, they're kind of like helpless. It's like they're helpless. They can't do anything about the world, so we gotta scream like a toddler about it. When you really take the divine principle and you start to look at it, you realize that the power of the universe is right in your hands. There is no victim, there is no helplessness here. You have the power to literally bring God into your life, to literally infuse His love, His presence into your family. So we teach here that God is in your spouse. God is in your family. That's where you see God. Much more than up in the galaxies, up in the sky. Although nature has its beauty, and you do see there too. The family is the model for what I think is a utopia. You know these movies that describe, right, utopia. The perfect society where everybody, you know, and it's like, it's almost scary how like flat and even everything is, and it's all perfect and no one's ever sad. Almost Brave New World-ish, right? And lots of books written about that. But if you think about it, the model of husband and wife and a child, and they kind of become co-authors, right? God gives you that ability to be a co-author with Him. That little unit is the best picture of utopia that you cannot replace. You cannot surpass that in my book. You know, and I just have a dog, a French bulldog, and I already think I'm in heaven most of the time. At least now that he stopped whining and going to the bathroom everywhere. So I want to encourage everybody to sort of step forward as we're going to be going through a lot of new things this year. We're restructuring the care groups. We're going to have more and more events, concert nights, banquet nights. There's some different things being planned. I'm going to ask all of you to be geared up to participate because really the focus, one of the big focuses now is building, not fixing. It's not about fixing, it's about building. You know, it's almost the same tools if you think about it. We can build something new from scratch. And the other thing I want to just bring home is sort of a summary of a few things that I've been picking up this week, is authenticity. We were talking about empowerment, right, for a few months there. We don't want to be victims, we want to be empowered. So going forward in this spring season, I want to talk a lot about authenticity. Because as I've been reflecting more and more in life, I realized that actually it's very hard to be authentic. It's very hard to be really yourself. You know, growing up in a religious environment, I realized I was a little allergic to the fact that everybody expected me to be a certain level of good, or everybody expected me to be a certain level of holy. And I think the people who are anti-religion, they point at that, like, I don't want to be judged, right? I don't want to be, get your constraints off of me. So it's like, you're not authentic because you're following these rules called good values, right? You're not authentic because you're following these certain rules. But I can tell you from personal experience that if you go outside and you're just, well, there is no God, there's no really, I don't really have a spiritual life, I'm just going to do my thing. And I did that for a number of years. You know, believed in God, but I did music, I went on tours, I traveled a lot, and that's all I did for a while. And I thought that was pretty great. But the further I got into that, I felt like actually I can't be authentic here either. Because, well, just look at it. In society, you can't really go out and you can't even really say the word God with comfort and security. It's like a weird, sensitive word now, right? You don't really hear people saying, hey, I prayed to God yesterday. You don't hear that in a line, at Trader Joe's or something. You don't hear it. It's like a hush thing. I think that's kind of weird. How come I can't be authentically a believer either? How come I can't be authentic there? So one of the things I've recently discovered not long ago was one of my challenges in my journey is to be as authentic as possible in all different environments. I think the more authentic you are, the more you can actually ask and bring God into exactly where you're at. Where you're really at. I think I realized the more I really fess up to myself, I'm actually more of a spiritual and more of a religious person than I ever wanted to be. I hate to say this. I thought I was the cool musician. For those of you who don't know me from my earlier years, leather jacket, leather jacket, bracelet, tour bag, guitars, big stadiums, planes every day. That was like the life I was living, and it was super cool. Of course, I enjoyed that. But in that world, I realized I had to be very kind of quiet about this other side of me that actually wants to learn about spiritual truth, that actually wants to be more and more comfortable with just even saying the word God in normal life. I met a guy the other day, and I said, hey, how are you? And he's like, yeah, just thanking God for another day. And I actually felt so refreshed. I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. I feel like that sometimes. I get you. But it's like even bringing God into the little conversations, exactly where you're at. Not over here, I have to go dress a certain way, pray a certain way, and then I'm out here and I gotta put the God back in the God box over there, and now I'm compartmentalized over here. This is my professional face, It's kind of an interesting thing to explore, to be courageous enough to be authentically as spiritual or non-spiritual as you want to be right now. Of course, I vouch and I encourage you all to be a little more spiritual. Embrace that part. There is a part of our human spirit that yearns to be back with God. We all have this concept. We all want to live forever, right? Everybody wants that. Where did that come from? I think we all know that we feel that presence of God in our lives. But now I'm asking a challenge for you guys and for myself this week is to really look at it and almost be open about it. Bring it into day-to-day life. So my message today is very short. I want to focus on building a community of people that are ready to build something new, We want to take God and bring it into new cultures, new things, new groups, new activities. The other thing is I want to encourage everybody to be as authentic as they can this year. I know I'm going to be struggling and working toward that as I try to get it out of my mind that professional people don't talk about God. Sharp people don't talk about God. Isn't that kind of the subliminal messaging, kind of the hint right now? God people are kind of washed out and not really sharp and not really smart, right? I want you to kind of notice that. That's absolutely not true. Be authentically yourself. Be as sharp Be as competent, be as professional, be as ambitious as you can. But also embrace and bring God into your life. I think you'll find a deeper sense of happiness once you can actually be more and more authentic in each part and each compartment of life. That's my short message for today, so thank you very much.